Welcome to Daily Wisdom from the Flippening podcast. These episodes feature short, to-the-point clips from our full-length interviews. We talk with the men and women behind the trades, crypto exchanges, and regulations with the goal of helping you become a better, more informed investor. Enjoy. Today we hear from Sam Bankman-Fried, CEO of FTX, one of the world's fastest-growing crypto derivatives exchanges. They also maintain the FTX token, which has the ticker symbol FTT. We discuss the Asian cryptocurrency market and how cities like Hong Kong and Singapore have become hubs for exchange activity. This clip is interesting because Sam also covers some of the reasons behind crypto's success in Asia. I hope you enjoy it. For the full conversation, check out Flippening episode 55. I should also mention that this episode has two sponsors. The first sponsor is Nexo, which offers instant crypto credit lines. Check them out at nexo.io. Our second sponsor is the Nomics cryptocurrency market cap and data API for institutions, fintech apps, and funds. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Sam Bankman-Fried, CEO of FTX, from Flippening episode 55. Again, we talk about how and why parts of Asia have become hubs for exchange activity. Enjoy.
I can tell you that I'm taking this call right now from Hong Kong. We've got a bunch of people out here. We also have smaller offices in a bunch of other places as well. And some of us are flying around a fair bit between them. Part of this is to have local presences to service clients in different jurisdictions. Part of this is to build up regulatory infrastructure in different jurisdictions. There are a lot of places where if you want a bank account in that country, you need to have boots on the ground. You need to have an entity. Part of this is to maintain flexibility. Traditionally, this has basically just meant corporate flexibility and sort of jurisdictional flexibility so that we can pivot if we need to. But, at this point, speaking as someone in a city with sort of giant weekly protests right now, we're sort of appreciating regional flexibility more and more. So it is a pretty global operation, but a lot of it's happening in Asia. The bulk of it's happening in Asia, and a decent chunk of that in Hong Kong.
It doesn't surprise me that so much exchange activity is Asia-based. It seems like a lot of U.S. companies that have become sort of comforted by the U.S. financial infrastructure and just kind of do the templated, hey, we're going to start a Delaware, C Corp. We're going to create a bank account at Silicon Valley Bank. We're going to do everything, sort of roughly the normal way. They start kind of hitting limits slowly but surely. Whereas if you kind of grew up in a place where the government can shut you down or where there isn't a lot of security or certainty, you kind of become accustomed to being, multi-jurisdictional. You're comfortable being on a plane, setting up things in different places. You understand sort of the international banking system sort of a lot better because you have to, and you've got hedges on hedges on hedges, so you can make payroll. No one's going to, your funds are pretty sort of seizure resistant, or at least the majority of them are, as you spread your risk around. Do you think that's why Asia has done so well, is because they've sort of, people from that region seem to be willing and able to sort of navigate the sort of the global market for, jurisdictional market and, sort of financial banking products in a bunch of different jurisdictions? Why are you in Hong Kong and why is there so much activity there?
I think there are a few things going on. And I think that is part of it, is that, we talk to really, really local exchanges from any jurisdiction. They try and maximize the hell out of their market, but they're really crap at getting other markets because it's just not what they're built for. And, this is true in the United States, but it's not the only place. There's US exchanges, Japanese exchanges, Korean exchanges, local Chinese exchanges that basically only have customers from their home country. Part of this is that, I would say Asia, but even more so, sort of global Asian cities, places like Hong Kong, like Singapore are, sort of natural places, sort of the melting pots of Asia in some sense, natural places for a pretty global business to use as a touchstone. I think that that's a piece of it. I think that there are other pieces there too. One of them is that, I think you end up looking at governments that take favorable looks at emerging industries. And say what you will about kind of the U.S. regulatory regime, it's, in general, contrasting it with some other places, it tends to move slowly at the beginning. It tends to take the position of look, we don't need to be the first country in crypto. we're going to wait till we have a regulatory structure that we trust and then try and be huge in things eventually. And once we do develop sort of the most comprehensive regulatory infrastructure in the world. But with crypto right now, in particular, like margin trading, it's basically taking the position we haven't figured out how to regulate that yet. So you can't really do it here. Whereas you contrast it with a lot of places in Asia, which take much more the approach like, go for it. We love to see new emerging markets and technologies. We'll accept some messiness and we'll regulate things as we need to. So I think that's sort of another angle of this that you see. And I say that without casting judgment on sort of what the better system is. It really depends on what your goals are. And then the last thing that I'll say is if you look at use cases for crypto, obviously some of this is like TBD, right? Some of this is like it could be huge in the future for all these reasons. We haven't figured out why yet. We'll get around to that. We're working on it. But if you look at like right now, what does crypto do? There's sort of like two obvious use cases. And it's the old like, store of value and means of transfer thing, right? Like if you want something to put all your money in and you don't have anything better, or if you want to move some money around. And the key thing here is that this is going to be a lot more useful in countries that have really bad alternatives. The United States has spent an enormous amount of time and money and labor building up infrastructure to provide these services. Bank transfers are terrible at paying for groceries, but it's kind of okay because there's this entire credit card sector that takes care of that. Say what you will about the dollar, it's like generally considered, the most safe, stable asset in the world. The calling point of Bitcoin in America is in some senses substantially weaker because America is already relatively good at the things that Bitcoin is currently used for. On the other hand, you look at more emerging markets, places where, first of all, just the financial ecosystem isn't that developed. So like the whole banking and credit card industry is like more scattershot. Actually, just like the fact that you can pay for things easily with it, is valuable, but combined crucially with a less mature currency, right? Like if you don't have the US dollar as an option, you don't have the euro, you don't have the yen, and you're thinking, where am I going to store my wealth? A lot of people, instead of thinking of like this incredibly speculative crypto thing or the safe fiat thing, they're like, well, I got two unsafe options. Which do I want to choose? And a lot of people choose crypto. And so I think that's one piece of it is just countries where the currency is less developed, less stable, less mature, or countries where, or regions where moving money around is both important and difficult. I think it's easy in the West to forget about this because you almost never have to move money around. And when you do, it just sort of happens via some magical process you never have to look at. You set up auto pay and you have no idea how that works or what that means, but it just does it. And other than that, you just never move money around except for credit cards. But then you get to a lot of other places. There's, a lot of remittances being sent across borders between banking systems that don't talk to each other. There's countries that restrict their currencies. You can't move it out of the country. There's people who are worried about governments seizing their bank account. And now all of a sudden, the appeal of like a decentralized currency that you can buy with anything and move anywhere in a minute starts to become like a lot more obvious.
That's it for today. If you like what you heard and want to support the show, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you decide to leave us a review after subscribing, we'll send you a free Nomics t-shirt. Just hit us up on Twitter at username nomicsfinance after you've left the review, and we'll hook you up. You may also be interested in nomics.com, our crypto market cap and pricing website. Check us out at nomics.com, spelled Nomics. Now stick around for our legal disclaimer. All opinions expressed by podcast hosts or guests are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinion of Nomics or any other company. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as the basis for investment decisions. The producers, hosts, and guests of the show may maintain positions in the companies or assets discussed today.